Welcome to the Build and Inspire podcast. We meet incredible people building amazing things, so you'll be inspired to build what you're passionate about.
Dylan, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I didn't even know I was starting a podcast when you and I first met, but when I first met you, we were presenting at the Real-Time Marketing Summit, and your speech absolutely killed it.
Thank you.
And it seems like you've been your company's doing really well, but also you've been promoting yourself too. So like one of the ways that we got reconnected was you posted that talk on LinkedIn, and I don't know what the numbers were, but I remember just seeing like I liked it and I commented, and like for the next 5 days it felt like I'm like new like, new comment, new like, new comment. Where to tell you the truth, I had to go ahead and mute it.
I'll be honest. I love when people give me love on LinkedIn, and there are times that I'll like someone else's content, and when they get too much love on it and I keep getting notified about it, I will mute it as well. So don't worry about it at all.
The other thing that happens sometimes is like you have those, I forget what they call them, like shadow followers, where like people are like, yo, I love that. And I'm like, I didn't see you comment or like it. They're like, oh no, I did it. I just read all your stuff. I'm like, just give me a little button.
People get a little jealous. It's okay though. I think it's just, everyone's got to try to support each other. I think that's the biggest thing. And people who are doing actually real things.
Yeah.
It's good for people to support each other, because the reality is what goes around truly does come around.
I agree. I built my whole career, my whole life really on like giving. Like the more I could give, the more value I can add to people's lives. I mean, like you said, it comes around, man.
Yeah. I think it's just about honestly being a good person. And I think you see so much right now about people who are deceitful and fraudulent, and that's been going on since the beginning of time. And I think the way that I was brought up and the way that I like to conduct business is to be as transparent as I can be, to be a good person. And I think people do recognize that. It may take a little longer than promising everyone the world, but the reality is I'm a very literal person. So if I'm going to work with someone and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to do it, or my team is going to do it, I want to make sure that we're actually going to deliver. And I don't want to just hide behind a screen or not be able to work with them anymore.
Agreed. And you know, it's funny, besides marketing, I also have done sales and I train salespeople. And I always tell them like, there's no reason to lie. Like for you to hit your quota, or for you to make, I don't know, let's even say $20,000 this month, for you never be able to pick up the phone again and sell this person, you're going to leave this company. You're going to start selling other pieces of software, other services. Why would you lie?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to like one of the larger hospitality companies this morning. And when we spoke about the network of creators that we work with, and we'll go into that in a second, they asked, do we have people in these specific countries? And the reality is the people that we know do know people in those countries.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to just say like yes right away, because I was open with them. I said, hey, the majority of our network is in major cities across the US. We also work with people in Paris and in London and Spain, but I actually don't have anyone off the top of my head who is from Seoul or who is from Australia. We can get there once we build a relationship, and I'm confident that the people that we know will know the right people to put us in touch with. But I'm not trying just to jump in that conversation and just say yes right off the bat, because I don't want people to engage in business or in the social world like I would think.
No, you got to guard your reputation, not only your business's reputation, but your own personal reputation with your life. Like that is the only thing that will carry forever, your reputation and who you are. So yeah, why would you lie? And also what people don't understand though, it could easily snowball for you. You could have easily said yes, you know, even not meaning to lie. And then all of a sudden be like, oh, so actually who do you know in Spain? Can you show me some of their stuff? And you'll be like, the internet's down.
No, totally. And even for me, like, you know, people do need to embellish. I think that's totally fine, but really stretching the truth too much, that's got to be tough to like constantly be able to think in the back of your mind, like what you told that person.
Yeah, who wants that?
Yeah. And so whether I'm talking to a coordinator or a VP or a CMO, my story from the beginning has been the exact same.
as it should. Like, you don't want to constantly be having another conversation, another train of thoughts happening while you're trying to be creative, sell, or do whatever the heck you're doing.
Totally agreed.
And so now that I mentioned whatever the heck you're doing,
Yeah.
so tell me and share with the audience a bit about your company, your background, what you're doing, and what you're trying to do in the future too, man.
Yes. So, founder of DS Projects. We are a creative / content agency based in New York. And our specialty is we have built up this massive network of whom we call New World creators.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these creators are photo and video specialists.
Nice.
And we're working with brands to bring our network and our production skills and our creative skills to say, hey, you need to be creating content that's more authentic. You need to be creating more compelling storylines. And we go directly to brands with that pitch and we say, hey, you need to inspire action. You need to unlock audiences. Let us work with you to help create that together.
That's amazing. And how'd you get to where you are? Because if I'm not mistaken, you have more of like an ad tech kind of background, right?
Yeah, so my entire career is actually in ad tech. I spent a bunch of years at a demand side platform by the name of MediaMath. And then I went to Complex Media, or now known as Complex Network, and built out pretty much their entire ad tech platform. And the reason and the way I got into starting DS was about 4 years ago. I had met this 15-year-old photographer who was really just a hobbyist at that time. And this was like right when Instagram like really started to pick up.
Sure.
I'm a hobbyist photographer myself. I'd met this kid out at a photo meet one day and literally had this vision that he could become a famous photographer. So went to his parents and I was like, hey.
And who's this creeper?
Yeah, for real. And I was like, I think that we could truly make your son famous because he's super talented.
Yeah.
So we signed a management contract, and goal number one was get as many legit eyeballs as possible on this kid's work. And so funny enough, I actually pretty much penned an article and hand delivered it to someone at Business Insider, touting this kid as a prodigy photographer. And literally 2 weeks after it was sent, there's an article on the front of Business Insider calling this young phenom a prodigy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
my hairs are standing up. That's cool.
No, it was dope. That was like definitely one of the prouder moments of my career because that came out of nothing.
Yeah.
That was like, people talk about just random ideas. That was just a little idea. So from
you decided to do it, obviously.
I mean, hey, that's everything.
Yeah.
And so from there, pretty much everything that I did and everything I still do now is parlaying one opportunity to the next. So in the article, made sure that it didn't only say that this kid's a great photographer, but he wants to work with Nike and he wants to work with Canon. The first two companies I emailed after that article came out was Nike and Canon. Nike put him up in a helicopter to shoot Nike Air Max Day, and Canon gave him pretty much an unofficial sponsorship, and he's the youngest person in history to be sponsored and given equipment by Canon, although it was unofficial.
Sure.
So through Ryan, I met this whole new world of these creators. And again, creators in my world, these are primarily photographers and videographers, but you have DJ creators, you have artist creators. Anyone who's doing something is creating.
Yeah.
And so I met this whole network of these really interesting and diverse creators. And 2 years ago, just decided, let me leave ad tech, and pretty much on a whim, just decided to start DS Projects. That's the background.
That's amazing. Because I mean, just looking at your LinkedIn and your resume, right? Like that doesn't come across at all.
In the slightest. And I think, I'll be honest, that's definitely something that like even I'm insecure about sometimes.
Sure.
I have a lot of friends who have those more conventional routes, or even people who become entrepreneurs. They generally do it like in their own field.
Yeah.
And so here you have myself who was in ad tech for like 6 or 7 years. And then you look at the resume and you see content and media and strategy and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I'm sure when people look at my resume, they're probably confused.
Sure, yeah.
And so maybe that's kind of why I try to do a lot of the personal branding as well, like you mentioned earlier on the show, where to me, LinkedIn has become just another social media site. And so if you think about it, like, let's just look at like millennials. I think as a whole, millennials are like, okay, Facebook, like I'm obligated to go on, but I'm like, whatever. It just is there.
No,
Then people go on Instagram, and Instagram's amazing. Snapchat for millennials is really slowing down, although obviously picking up for younger generations. And I think specifically millennials, especially like during the day, they want to socialize.
Yeah.
And so LinkedIn is sort of becoming a bit of like a default network for people to go. And it just so happens to be primarily geared towards business.
Yeah.
And so again, I love storytelling. I storytell on Instagram with taking my own photos.
Yeah.
And for LinkedIn, the storytelling there is, hey, I'm trying to do interesting things. My company is working with interesting brands, and there are people sitting behind their computers right now who are itching for good business stories, and creators and entrepreneurs who are really out there. And I want to be one of those people who stays on top of people's feeds.
Yeah.
So my name gets out there, my business gets out there, and I always see whenever I'm posting, there's always like one or two things that happen where it's not like someone from a big brand is saying, oh my God, I saw your post, here's $100,000 to run an ad campaign. But there's so much positive feedback that is coming through. And that's a reason why I am using LinkedIn more and more to promote the work of DS Projects and to promote myself.
We're in a really good spot because it's still early on for LinkedIn specifically too. Like we're coming out with stories too that are geared kind of towards like college students, and then they're actually going to be expanding that. So I think anybody who gets into it now is going to be in a really good spot tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think the big thing though, and this is something that like I have my coworkers and even my family check, is I'm not trying to become an influencer. I'm not trying to become
like Gary Vaynerchuk or something. Well,
he's balling, and so
in a certain light, yeah.
So no, I can't hate on that at all. I'm just trying to be in my own lane. And so for me, it's telling good stories and showing case studies, but not trying to pretend like I'm a leader who has it figured all out. And the one thing I will say about him is he is successful. And although people may not agree with him, he actually has end results from the path that he's taken.
Yeah, agreed.
The issue is when a voice has been democratized, like it has become across social media, and people can have their own voices and share it with the world. Just because people have voices doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right to, or that they know the answers. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And so I'm always careful when I'm posting to make sure that people know I am not an authoritative figure. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. And so I try to focus on case studies rather than really just big picture. Here's my thoughts on business. Because I just don't think that would be fair for someone in my position to be offering such grandiose advice to the rest of the people who are watching my status.
And I agree with you. And I think lots of audiences that go to conferences or are on LinkedIn would 100% agree with you. I think one of the key reasons that Gary Vaynerchuk is also successful is because he does it. I saw a video of him the other day talking about like going to garage sales and like reselling things. And then like 2 days later, I saw him in Jersey on video, not in real life, right? I saw him in Jersey, like buying something and like pulled up like a Pokemon card or something. He's like, this is worth like $20. I just bought it for like $10. And like, you see it happening. And I think we lost for the longest time that pragmatism. I think there's a space for evangelism and inspiration, but like also pragmatism. Not like, hey, you know how do you make money in business? Sell more product. Thanks.
No, I hear you. And I think what gets me so excited is when people do things.
Yeah.
And I know that's really basic, but again, with social, it is so easy to say things and not actually do them. So I commend anyone who's going out there and is thinking outside the box and doing,
You got it. Activating.
executing, because here's the reality. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And period.
No, I mean, it's extreme. Even hard. I just go and say like extremely difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, doing obviously executing. I said this the other. Actually, during my talk at the Real Time Marketing Summit, I got called out by a bunch of my friends because I said I got quoted as one of the things being like, ideas don't matter, right? And obviously, I don't mean ideas don't matter. I mean like my mom has ideas. I'm
Yeah.
like you should do this and we should do that. I'm like, I'm like, are we gonna do any of that? Can you do it?
Totally. But they can, and they can be like guiding principles too. So for example, I have this idea to build a portfolio of companies
Yep.
that benefit the needs of the modern creator.
Interesting. Okay.
So what needs do they have? They have needs where they need brand campaigns.
Yep.
At DS Projects, we offer them brand campaigns. They have needs for good accessories. I'm a partner in an accessories company.
Interesting.
They have needs around finances. They have legal needs. They have creative needs.
Sales.
So I don't exactly know what the end result of this idea is,
Mhm.
but I do come back to it and think, hey, it'd be a great idea to build this portfolio of companies that benefits the needs of the modern creator.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And you could not be at a better time to be doing this. To quote the head of Havas from Chicago, Havas, for those I know, is a big agency out of France that's globally known for creative. He actually said on a podcast a couple of months ago, he's like, I'm not worried about what JWT or any other agency is doing out there. I'm worried about what that 15-year-old is doing in the corner. That looks 20 times better than anything I'm doing, and actually costs 99% less.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what I'm doing.
So that's Jason Peterson, who he's got a very interesting ideology when it comes to content, and he's seen it firsthand. And it's interesting because the last part you said around like the 99% cheaper, I think that's one of the biggest things that I fear. Going back to the idea of content and ideas and voices being democratized really drives the price down. So if you look at a lot of photographers, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they have a very hard time competing with the current way of creating content and pricing around content, because everyone is trying to do stuff for cheaper and for free. And because you can create content with an iPhone or a basic camera and then share it to the world for free, the barrier to entry is much lower.
Got it. Interesting. I mean, this is very reminiscent of how the music industry went, right? Yeah.
I mean, look at it. Actually won't even jump into it because I'm not even going to pretend like I'm an expert there. But yes, it had become democratized in a sense, and they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I actually heard that for the first time since, and I'm not an expert in this either, so I should fact check and I'll put it in the notes afterwards. But like for the first time since like Napster, are artists really starting to make what they used to make? It's not even really from the music, right? It comes from like merch and all that kind of good stuff. But,
yeah, it's interesting. Going back to sort of what I know best around, and that's why in the world of content and advertising, that is why strategy is very important.
Sure.
Because if you're bringing strategy, that's generally fresh ideas to the table. And even with content, even though it could be fresh content, think about it. Let's say you work at a growing hospitality company. I'm sure if you look at your social media at hospitalitycompany.com, you look at your inbox, it'll be filled with people from all over the world who are willing to work for free.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way for people to get in the door, get their case studies. But I do think people need to have an understanding of sort of what that path to like profitability is.
Yeah.
And just making sure that, hey, if we all as a creative community are doing things for free or for cheap, it's very hard to get out of that hole.
That's fair. That's a really good point. Something else that I think a lot of people are probably thinking about now, you mentioned these content creators that will create things for free. Now, are you calling these folks influencers? Do they have to be influential for you to hire them? Should they be influencers? Is nice if they had both, or what's your POV on that?
So when we're walking into the door, with content first.
Got it.
That's my passion. That's what we love. And what's happened is if you can create really compelling content, you're going to have an audience for that content.
True.
And that audience will build over time if you nurture the audience. So many of the creators that we work with, they have amassed followings.
Got it.
So the difference though is I think your people who identify themselves as influencers first, they're only getting paid to be influential. And I think the issue with that, it can be, you almost have to take on more than you want if, in the sense of you've got to constantly be influential and influencing.
Got it. Yeah, then that's your business now, like you said.
Yes.
Earlier. Yeah.
With the creators that we're working with, they're creating content first.
They're content creators first.
If the brands align, then there are opportunities to bring the influence in there as well. What brands align with that? Travel companies, hospitality, apparel, auto. But we wouldn't necessarily walk into a Clorox and say, let's do a creative influencer campaign, because the creators that we're working with don't really fit that demo. They're more of the 21 to 34 diverse group of creators, and that's where their followers are as well.
Interesting. Yeah, that's when you go the traditional quote unquote of like influencer marketing if you want it to be Clorox or.
Yeah, and I think it works if it's scaled the right way, and we've seen it work before. But for us, it's really about the content and the storylines, and that's what gets me excited. And again, if it's the right brand, and we think that our creators' voices will align with that brand, a Fila, a Budweiser, an Audi, then that is a perfect situation.
Amazing. I love that you just mentioned those brands, because those are actually your clients too, right?
We've worked with them, yes.
Which is amazing. I mean, going from, I love your story to having big brands, because I think sales is the hardest part, right? Actually landing clients and like getting them to work with you. A lot of people could inspire. Closing is different.
Yeah. Selling is hard.
Yes.
Anyone who thinks it's easy, please call me and I'll hire you. That's why having a good product is really important. And that's why being passionate is really important.
Yeah.
And I haven't necessarily cracked on how to be the best seller.
Sure. No one has.
What I'm trying to do is be intentional. And for me, being intentional is not necessarily having our list of 100 clients that we have to get in the door with, but intentional is more feeling comfortable with the work that we can do and recognizing brands out there that look like they would benefit from the work that we do.
I see.
And you hear a lot now from advertisers who are saying, we want to be more nimble. We don't necessarily want to work with these massive agencies. Whenever I pick up on those keywords, always try to go after those brands because they're helping me do my job. But yeah, it's a big battle. You know, how many people like probably in this office here are in a creative field? A lot on every floor. So there's a lot of competition. Again, going back to the theme of content being democratized. And so it's just about marketing and selling and being confident, being passionate, and having a little bit of swagger.
Yeah, no, I like that you put the swagger part at the end there, 100%. And I think that's why, again, I go back into how important giving is, because it's not only good to be a good human and give, but it actually does have ROI.
100%. I'm asking for favors all the time, and I can assure you that I never have any unread messages in my inbox or in my text, because anyone who needs anything from me, I'm more than happy to help out.
Amazing, amazing. At the end, obviously, I'll put your contact information so everyone can start emailing you.
Get at me. Dylan@dsprojects.co.
That's amazing. So do you see, agencies actually evolving, changing, dying off, and more companies like yours popping up where they're trying to be like you? How do you see the whole marketplace going?
So I'm going to speak to what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing is that there definitely are needs for brands to have a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if you look at how advertising was done and the resources that were needed to go from strategy to eyeballs,
Yep.
there's a lot less people involved. Perfect example, going from creative content a few years ago, needing massive amounts of teams, developing the film, editing the film, then going from having those assets in recorders and having them in tapes to then the actual buying aspect.
Yeah.
Historically, buying was a very one-to-one method. You'd have to call up the New York Times. You'd have to call up ESPN. In my old world of programmatic, all of that has totally been really just reduced, where you can use these platforms to go out and target people using technology on a one-to-one basis and not have to actually hop on the call to buy that media. And so going back to the question in terms of where do I think it's going, resources are definitely needed. But if you just take a step back, going from strategy to media buying, you do need less people involved.
Sure.
And you are often hearing now where brands, they want to be more authentic. They want to be more relevant.
They need to be.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think it's very difficult because historically at a lot of these larger agencies, who are the people working at these larger agencies? Generally, a lot of folks who went to these great schools and have these art backgrounds, when the reality is we're working with people from all types of backgrounds, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you have an art degree or not. And that's actually something I did say during the Real Time Summit. But you know, that's it. And so when we're talking to the biggest companies out there, they're saying like, no, the people who know us, they know us.
Yeah.
How do we get that new consumer in the door? And that's where having an ear to the ground comes into play. And realizing a 30-person strategy team of people in middle America is maybe not as effective as one 24-year-old who lives in the Lower East Side with 3 other roommates on a 6th floor walk up. And he's going out or she's going out every night and reading different kind of up and coming blogs and seeing who's out there.
Sure.
And so the short answer is, sure, there's going to be big teams and big agencies. I also think, and what I'm seeing is brands also wanting to be more nimble. And that's where we've been able to grow.
Sure. And I love that. And I love that story that you just shared, because I'll play devil's advocate a bit in your favor though, as far as what you're doing and what you're trying to create, what you are doing already. Like also the companies that are trying to sell to the person in the Midwest, maybe that person in Brooklyn and Williamsburg up that, you know, that's 4-story walk up isn't the best to be selling to someone in middle America. But using the way that you've created your business and you structured and you see things going, then you could actually hire that person who's creating amazing content in the Midwest to sell to the Midwest.
100%. And that's a term that's coming up more and more, is localized efforts.
Yeah.
And with social media, localized is easier. You can drop 10 people in 10 different cities in the span of 1 hour, create content, buy media against that content with one person behind the dials and a team of 2. You can now reach a seemingly unlimited amount of people in those 10 different cities that you targeted or that you just showed up in an hour before.
Amazing. I mean, I come from the world of, I started at JWT, a traditional ad agency, and like getting that done would be months. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how much, like.
No, seriously. I think in probably 45 minutes, I could go out, have someone shoot a really high quality piece of content, repurpose that content into an ad, and serve it across your favorite websites, including all social media platforms, again, in that 45 minutes.
Amazing. So are you finding that most of your clients right now are looking for that real-time marketing thing? And real-time marketing is a thing that comes up a lot. Obviously, that's how you and I met.
So much. I think what's happening is consumers are literally only worried about the last like 45 minutes, if not 15 minutes. And so because of that, it's important to be really quick on the dial when it comes to posting and sharing content, because if you miss out on that, like you're out. And so, I think it's important because I think when people in my place come into these conversations, it's very easy to say localizes everything. And the reality is big picture stuff matters.
Sure.
And you'll see it from Nike and Adidas. They crush the big pictures and they're doing an amazing job. I think it's just also important to supplement it with a lot of that localized effort.
I like that.
And as I'm saying that, I forgot what the initial question was.
What was that? I cut you off at the end there.
I forgot what the question was as I said that.
It's funny because actually my dog started barking and I forgot it too.
All good.
We could always cut back to this or anything like that.
No worries.
But so what's interesting is that you are working with these big clients and you're reaching some of the most amazing content creators and ultimately the most amazing people. Are you seeing this done in a way that brands could actually do this internally, or you seen that at all? Because there's a lot of big conversations happening about agencies losing money to internal agencies.
Everything is resources. And if people have the resources to do it in-house, then go ahead and do it in-house. I think what happens is a lot of teams, they're there to make sure that the ship is running.
Got it.
And theoretically, could they do this in-house? Yes. But it's about bandwidth. It's about resources. And you hear it a lot even in ad tech and programmatic advertising, how that made media buying a lot easier.
Yep.
And there was a whole shift in brands really moving it in-house. Some are doing it, but some aren't, just because it still takes resources. And it also takes expertise. I think that's the other thing is you hire outside teams because they have the expertise and they're not doing what was working 3 or 4 years ago when they first got to that brand. They're doing things that are working now. And so there's always going to be that battle of in-house versus not in-house. And I think that'll continue. And so I think just the overall, what I've seen is it really just depends on the brands. But even brands who have capabilities in-house will say they don't like to work with their in-house teams.
No, I've heard that quite a bit actually.
Yeah, but to each his own. Some brands crush it and keep doing you. And if I was a CEO of a major brand and I could keep as much money in-house,
sure,
and if
that's just good business.
Really great work, then awesome.
Sure.
No waste.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, because this is maybe contradictory, but because everything is so localized, in a sense, like it is hard to do that from one centralized location. And you really need like those teams on like in the different locations to actually like come through and complete whatever the strategy is.
Yeah. I don't think you contradicted yourself at all, because actually the way you answered the question at the very beginning is the right answer for almost anything, right? Because even we wanted at 360i, we wanted to build an internal social media management tool, right? We quickly failed, right? Because we didn't have the resources. We actually had it built, but what happens when an API gets updated? Oh, what happens when the password needs reset? Oh, we don't have any resources for that, right? So we're like, oh, let's just hire someone who focuses specifically on that. And the other part of that, they answering it by saying that it's resource-based. Truthfully, it's like the same kind of time I get, hey, what's the best social media management tool out there? Or what's the best car out there? It's really what you need and what you have. I mean, the best car out there is the Bugatti, whatever. Can you afford that?
Your own.
Yeah, right? Like you can't afford that. Or actually you could afford the Bugatti, but you really want to go off-roading.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you answered it. I don't think you contradicted yourself at all there.
Beautiful. I remember what we were speaking about earlier is real-time content.
Yes.
Total rise in that. Again, so what we were saying was consumers have a short attention span and they want to know things that are happening right now. And so increasingly important for brands to creating content that's relevant in that specific time zone.
Sure.
And we see it with a lot of folks where we'll create content at like an event and we'll say we want to amplify that content to your social channels.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because photo you could turn around very quickly.
Yeah.
Video takes a little longer.
So you gotta edit it.
There's any lag on the edit. It's interesting because it'll be 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah.
And it's like, we kind of missed the boat on that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where like micro video comes into play, where creators are making this like much shorter form video content that's like 3 to 8 seconds.
Sure.
It can be edited in a day. It's super engaging. But anything that's like 30 seconds or longer, it takes time and resources to make sure you're actually putting good quality content out there.
Amazing. I see, and let me know if you agree, I see actually technology will end up changing that, because even your story earlier before about taking a photo, how long did that take? Right. Right now you said taking a photo takes seconds and sharing a photo.
Yeah.
But before, in the story you told from the older photographers, they got to take a photo. They got to take it into the dark room. The funny thing is, from that perspective, you don't even know if you got a good photo.
100%. Yeah. Right now it's instant feedback.
Yeah.
And that's actually like, it's pretty amazing, to be honest. Like, and even though digital cameras, I remember actually when I was in high school, was in the darkroom shooting film. And when digital cameras first like really got on the scene, it was like, what the hell? Like, this is so weird, like cheat codes in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It is cheat codes.
Now it's amazing. Look how you can be on set with a client and you will know at the end of the day if what you're going to be producing is really going to work when it's ready to go live, and not going to have to redo an entire shoot because your film was exposed.
Yeah, or the lighting was off or something. And then I see video getting there though, because I mean, the problem is I forgot the statistic, what it is. I should put it in the show notes too, but like the actual people that like print out their photos or actually share their photos or their video, especially video, you have people with GoPros that never post anything, right? Because it's not edited. Yeah,
video editing, I think it can be hard for people who aren't experienced with it. Photo editing can be hard.
Yeah, sure.
You know, even you go to Adobe Lightroom, if you've never worked with it for the first time, raw files versus JPEG files.
Oh, Photoshop is difficult like to look at.
Even Lightroom and mobile Lightroom. And so I think with video, that barrier to entry is a little higher. And I'm definitely interested and curious to see what tech companies out there can make editing more seamless. And I'm sure there are a lot out there. So maybe for anyone who's listening to this, feel free to pass it along. But yeah, all interesting stuff.
There are companies out there, I've been saying, and I could be wrong, but I thought like GoPro was looking to invest in one of them or something, where like it would automatically edit your video. Maybe they have it in the app now. I remember seeing something like that and being like, wow, all right, that's amazing. Like, I mean, I guess Apple does it now. I mean, they do some of the slideshow kind of things, and now as AI gets better, you're going to see that happening more and more.
Yeah, I'm sure my videographers who are going to watch this are going to call me an idiot because they know all the tricks. The reality is I don't know all the tricks, but I definitely do hire all the right people who do know all the right tricks. So I feel confident about.
Right now I'm thinking that they're listening to this and being like, we just use AI. I just tell them it's going to take me an hour or two, and then I just go and have coffee.
Yeah, they don't even shoot anymore. They're just hanging out on their couch.
That's amazing, dude. No, but I love the way technology is growing, because I do remember the same thing in high school. I remember even video editing in high school, and I thought it was the most amazing thing. And now the things that Final Cut could do, and Final Cut is only $300.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, almost anybody could really get into it. Like, it's not like, I remember when I wanted to go to college, I was looking into some video editing courses and stuff, and you had to do like actual manual cutting of film.
Oh, crazy, archaic.
Yeah, or God forbid, like you accidentally cut the wrong thing.
Yep.
Like, whoops.
Totally.
I couldn't imagine the anxiety. Thank God I didn't do. I don't know. Thank God also it was at the time when it was changing, but I'd be like, I have too much anxiety for like this thing. So you've been working, I mentioned, on a couple of interesting projects. You did mention to me one project that you worked on that is very infamous right now.
Yes. So, DS Projects was hired to do all the photo and video content for the infamous Fire Festival.
Yep.
And very crazy story. We were hired about 3 weeks before the festival actually happened.
Oh, I thought it was actually before. Okay.
No, so pretty much any content that you've seen was not us. We didn't have the ability to actually work. And so we put a team of 35 people together to go down to the Bahamas. We're down there, and pretty much like everything you've seen across the documentaries is kind of what it was like down there. And so
Did you
definitely,
personally go?
yeah. So, and it was 3 months into launching the business. And so that was scary.
Yeah.
And really the story is, went in really confident, thought that it was going to change my life and really have a seat at the table. And then you sort of fast forward to day of, and furiously doing everything that we can do to get our team off the island. And end result is we did that. And so it's interesting because some people, when they ask me about it, they like kind of beat around the bush a little like you did. But there's really nothing to hide from. I mean, it was a crazy learning experience. And the reality is, and I've said this before, every single person that we brought down there will pick up my calls, because I made sure that I did right by everyone when we got home, even though it was a massive financial loss on our side. And so just making sure to keep my business reputation, my own personal brand reputation. But it was a team effort. My producers really were the ones who got everyone out of there. It was really just my credit card that I provided. But yeah, it was interesting. And, you know, it's just a story that doesn't die. And so what happened was, after it happened, obviously shell-shocked. First thing I did was email the music festival by the name of The Meadows, which is owned by Governor's Ball. Asked them if we could produce their content, because we just took a massive loss, and they said yes. After that, I like took a breather and like probably didn't work for a week.
Were you scared, or are you just like in shock, or you're just like
I was in shock. I was I'm like really trying to think what was going through my mind. I was scared.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was really scared. I wanted to make sure that the people that I put down were okay with me and didn't feel like I put them in like a dangerous situation. And then of course everyone gets home and like our WhatsApp group is popping stories. But yeah, decided to really like go dark from a media standpoint for a while, because I didn't want to be involved in just like the rush of people trying to get stories out of everyone. A lot of like, you know, what I said earlier about like my sales etiquette, everything's intentional. My media coverage with Fire Festival was very intentional as well. And so I didn't partake in any of like the viralness. I didn't partake in any of the craziness. I sort of just sat back and let it all happen in front of me. And then over the course of like a few weeks and a few months, I had started writing up a story about the experience and just like the lessons that were learned. And I pretty much cold emailed the write-up to Fast Company. And it was very deliberate that it was Fast Company, because I respect them as a publication. I thought the right eyeballs would be on it. And I just would have felt proud if they had published it. And so they published that article. And then from there, I was able to speak about the experience at South by Southwest. Which was another awesome experience.
This past year, like it's gonna be like a couple of weeks ago?
The year before, 2018. And then Variety actually wrote an article about the speech, which was the scariest moment of my entire life, because when someone tells you, did you see your article in Variety?
There's like, oh shoot,
50% chance your life may be ruined. But the author wrote an incredible write-up. And so I just got those like 3 really strong pieces of media and press. And from there just decided like, no more big press. I don't want to be involved in any documentaries or any of that. I told my story, and in these conversations, it's cool to chat about it, but I didn't want that to just be like, I didn't want my face to be like on a billboard. That's just, I have no interest in that.
Agreed. No, and plus, in situations like this, at least you have a time to tell your full story. It's not just a little sound bite or a little quote that someone, obviously someone edits.
And that was important, especially because I'm kind of a free-spirited talker. So hopefully I'm doing well on this podcast.
No, you're doing fantastic.
But I'm a free-spirited talker, and so I wanted to make sure I was very deliberate in how I presented myself, because once it's out there, like, people are gonna make their decisions.
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
again, like, someone could obviously edit this to make you say anything they want you to say, but at least that context is out there. And it's one of the reasons I deliberately set it up like this. It actually comes up quite a bit nowadays on my recent recordings. I've been fortunate enough to be interviewed quite a bit. And sometimes someone will be like, you have 30 seconds to answer this question. You have 40 seconds to answer that question. And then I get anxiety. I don't know what I said. Then I'm like, am I mumbling? Then I get to the point. And then they're like, ready to go to the next question. And I'm like, but like, giving you just to be like, all right, tell me about your business. It doesn't have to be an elevator speech. It's just like,
no, 100%. And I think that's how people really perform their best.
Yeah.
And even sort of jumping a little back into like more like work stuff is, even when I'm speaking with people or if I'm interviewing people, I always want people to feel comfortable.
Sure.
Because there have been so many times where I felt like I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's just not a good way to go about business. Yeah, I was like, literally anything.
Yeah, literally anything. I mean,
that's really
your significant other, right? Like, you want a space where people could be vulnerable and confident, and that they could share ideas and not be made fun of and not look at the
you have to
negatively. 100%.
I was in a meeting the other day with someone, and something happened, and they were super, super, super nervous.
Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna say anything, but I really was like, let's just take a step back here.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, this is okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about this to work through it. And I don't know, it's almost like, honestly, since Fire Festival, work's actually very stressful, but in terms of like specifics and like kind of like shit hitting the fan, I've definitely calmed down a little bit. Just because stuff happens. That's really it. And you can't win every time.
Oh, 100%. No,
and I'm trying to be a good person, and when I'm speaking to people, have them feel comfortable. Because again, anytime in my career, it's almost like why I wanted to leave a 9 to 5 is like I wanted to feel a little more free, and I didn't want to feel like scared.
That's good. I mean, being scared is definitely a motivator, and then going through difficult times is also a motivator and something that is good. Besides, obviously, the whole cliche things, it teaches you all that kind of good stuff. But I think it is part of the human condition to struggle a tiny bit.
See, a little struggle is good, but a little more than that is tough.
No, of course. But I do believe wholeheartedly, again, and it could be on relationships with your significant other or a business, being vulnerable and being open is always going to lead to the best things. I remember earlier on in my career where I said something and someone like turned around and be like, that's dumb. The next time I had a good idea, I didn't even share it. I was scared.
I think my entire education, I felt like that.
And no, it happens. It's so easy to, and sometimes it's funny. Like I may do it with someone now and not mean it, but I think it's about also just recognizing that, and then maybe pulling that person aside or even in the meeting, actually even better. You're like, you know what? Sorry, I kind of was like quick and I made a joke and I realized how that might have come off. I didn't mean that. Being able to do that for the person being, I don't want to say bully, but even that might have made someone feel uncomfortable. I think that's
totally agreed. For me, any single person that I'm bringing on for a project, working for DS Projects, I always tell them, you have the right to speak up, and please don't yes man me.
Yeah, no, that doesn't help you.
Please don't. and I look them in the eye and I tell them, you can tell me how you're feeling when I'm asking questions, because I have you in this room because I value your opinion.
Yeah.
So I feel very, very strong about that. Again, just because, so much of life is just going through personal experiences, and, I actually have had great bosses. Al, I love you. But there are definitely times where it's like, I just don't want to say anything, and then you lose confidence.
Yeah.
And when you lose confidence, it's game over.
Yeah, and that's bad for business too. So.
Yeah.
So you're telling me your business is growing. How are you dealing with the scale? Or you told me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So going back to being nimble is trying to like reduce overhead as much as possible. And so really built the entire business on working with contractors and freelancers. And it's worked. And
Wow.
it's been great because you know exactly what the margins are
Yeah.
for every single project. There's no surprises. And I guess when you have people, a large scale team that's full time, there's no surprises because you know what you're paying everyone. But I think it gets a little lost in terms of each specific project. What's the profit?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as we have more conversations with more brands, definitely trying to figure out like, okay, like how to make this scalable.
Sure.
And you know, some of that goes to do with, you know, a lot of it is what the plans are. That's really what it comes down to. And is what's going to happen is hiring a bunch of people and really going all out. That's an option.
Yeah.
Or is the option to again be as lean as possible. And that's something that I'm probably juggling around this answer because I'm working on the answer.
No, I get it. Yeah, no,
right now. Like talk about
it's
real
one of the
time.
hardest things in the world.
Like, and when I started the conversation off saying, hey, when I'm talking to brands and want to make sure that like we're delivering on what we're like promising,
Mm-hmm.
having some like pretty serious conversations right now,
Yeah.
and wanting to make sure that we can do that. And so the scaling thing is like probably one of the things that keeps me up at night more than anything else.
Sure. No, I could imagine. I mean, obviously there are whole books and classes dedicated specifically to scaling. It's one of the hardest things you could possibly do. When it comes to, and I'll relate it back to my scaling question. Obviously you're looking for people that are local. Are you also looking for people based on interests? So if you are getting someone, you know, for Red Bull, are you also looking maybe for a photographer that also loves extreme sports and that maybe is going to put a little bit more passion behind it or anything versus just someone who does, you know, I don't know, food photography, which might be an amazing photographer, but.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome question. That is definitely something that we look out for and making sure that when we're speaking with brands, we can pair them with the right people.
Sure.
Spoke with a travel company recently, and even if someone that we know is the greatest apparel photographer in the world, like, I'm sorry, like, even if I really think you can create great content,
You probably can.
I don't know if I want to go that route. But I will say a lot of people who are in a certain vertical, a lot of stuff they're creating, it can be very predictable.
Yeah.
And if you bring people who aren't necessarily specialists,
I see what you're saying.
they're able to bring a unique eye to the table. And I will give you a perfect example.
Yeah, please.
We create a lot of content for Budweiser and their live events.
Uh-huh.
Budweiser Live is an experiential event that really uses music and sports as pillars to get people to come out and engage with the brand.
Mm-hmm.
We do not bring event photographers to the activations.
Interesting.
We bring campaign photographers. Why do we do that? Because we're selling authenticity and originality, and we're using the lighting around the event. We're using what's happening in a natural way around the event. Mm-hmm. Instead of going up to someone and saying, let me put a big camera in your face with a flash.
Yeah.
We want to go at it more of a campaign approach. And so I think that's a perfect example where, hey, if you're an event photographer, we don't need to work with you on that kind of campaign.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to the scaling, are you finding that sometimes hard to scale, right? Like I might be able to find 5 people that are really into extreme sports is the worst example because there's lots of people, but let's just use it. Extreme sports, but like now I need 20 people that are into extreme sport. Or do you have the one that's really passionate kind of be the project manager for the rest?
So I think from a production standpoint,
yeah,
that's probably something that I feel most confident in. Amazing. Is actually being able, again, to tell a brand we're going to come through with something. The scaling is more on the pre-sell and the strategy, and
that makes sense. That's
hiring up on sales.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually scaling the network is in such a beautiful place, and the creators are amazing. So that I don't worry about. It's more of like the pre-sales and scaling the business from that standpoint that I definitely think about a lot.
Amazing. Is there a size that's too big? Like you're like, I never want to have like 300,000 people working for me.
No.
Amazing. Love it. Well, especially because you're almost going to be like the conglomerate of all these different areas, right? Like you said, you have different verticals that you want people helping with equipment, people helping with sales, marketing, content creation, all that kind of good stuff. So
Yeah, I think it's funny because as I was saying, the bigger the better. The reality is, I really want to live a balanced life,
yeah,
and probably 300,000 is too many people
yeah,
to manage. So I would maybe take that a step back and
sure,
get in check a little bit more. But I want to scale my life,
yeah,
and I want to do big stuff. And I want to go out there and meet interesting people and work with interesting brands and see where the road takes me.
hmm,
And so I don't want to necessarily put a limit on that.
yeah,
It's more so as I do that, making sure that everything else in my life is operating as efficiently and effectively as possible.
sure,
My family life is amazing. My social life is great. My girlfriend, who's my long-term girlfriend, and hopefully we spend the rest of our life together, we're great. And so I just want to make sure that business is a wonderful,
yeah,
and making money is special and it provides a lot of resources, but
yeah,
also
I
making
agree.
sure that everything else in my life is well balanced for, because that was like the life that I had growing up with
Yeah.
parents who were totally attentive and we had the right resources. And so, yeah, that's my POV on sort of scaling and living a balanced life.
No, that's amazing. I was smiling also as you were telling next. I'm like, if you do have 300 people under you, you could just play golf half the time. You have everyone else doing everything.
I mean, if there's an opportunity to do that, then I think that'd be great. But you sort of see it. The people who are successful, they're working.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a complete joke. It's a
Yeah,
complete joke because
but they're on the golf course, and I'm sure half the time they're working. The other half they probably are hanging out.
sure.
But no,
No, I
that
think that's
that would be an amazing. You could find a way to do social. If you find a way to be social, make money, have businesses, happy family.
100%.
God bless you. That's an amazing position to be in.
No, and obviously I was saying a joke, but my joke was even antiquated, right? Like that's like the 80s style of like what a CEO does. Most of the CEOs that I've met of like Fortune 100 companies, and it's not been a lot, I don't know a lot, but I've
Yeah,
been in the room. There are like people that work and care about their work and want to do. And
yeah,
actually, they don't play golf.
yeah. Well, it'd be nice to like play golf and like maybe just be like texting in between holes.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but now you can, right? I mean, just open up the laptop real quick and like,
Yeah, get the iPad going, put it
yeah,
on the steering wheel of the car, and your money.
yeah, 100%. I mean, the car's going to be driving you by itself to the golf course, and you have your like Oculus that you put on, and then you just say hi to everyone.
And then you just again remember that you're just sitting back on your couch and you never
Yeah.
left. But no, going out and doing stuff, very important, very
Yeah.
very important. And yeah, I'm trying to again balance life, balance work life,
Amazing.
build a career, meet good people, be successful, and keeping the mental health in check as well.
I agree. I mean, because it's all around that balance, right? Just like anything else in life, it's about balance. And sometimes, do you feel that it's tipping over one way or another? Sometimes it's too hard.
Yeah, work is hard. Work is very hard. And trying to figure out the career. We spoke about this when we started, where again, I come from 6-7 years of ad tech,
Yeah.
and then I moved to creative. And what do people think I am? What is my career? What is my path?
Sure.
And even if I'm doing all this great stuff, do I want to stay in a creative field?
Yeah.
Do I want to go to ad tech? Am I a salesperson? Am I a marketer?
Well, now you're everyone because you're the head of the company.
That's like literally going through my mind. That's not. I'm not just saying that because I'm on some show. That's literally what I think about.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's stressors.
Well, no, I mean, there's
Other than Hattem, there's stressors.
well, I mean, here's the thing. I think right now, at least you have the opportunity to do all those different types of things. As someone who started a company as an entrepreneur, as founder, as a CEO, right? You have the opportunity to do that. And actually, even from that perspective, I think it's a privilege because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to try those different things.
And I appreciate that. And truly what keeps me going is positive reinforcement in my life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get off from negative energy to prove doubters wrong. And I'm the exact opposite, where what keeps me energized is people being positive and being supportive of me. So number one, thank you for that. And I guess number two is it's good to hear because it just keeps me feeling good, because again, there's uncertainty. And I think in any career there's uncertainty, but in the entrepreneur and switching careers, there's a lot more uncertainty there than if you sort of just like plan on just being a teacher for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, switching, because then all of a sudden you switch careers. Like if I went into accounting right now, like I'd have to start at the bottom, but then also like let's say I was in accounting for the next 2 years, no one in marketing would hire me because they're like, "What have you been doing for the past 2 years?"
You know, it's so funny. I got hit up by a recruiter from a big ad tech company today, asking if I wanted to come back to ad tech.
Really?
And I wrote her saying like, "I'm good, but thank you for checking out my profile and recognizing that I have the ad tech skills."
That is a good recruiter, because most won't recognize that. They're like, "Oh, he's been traveling for 2 months. We can't hire him." I'm like, "What?"
I wrote her back and I said, that is like the most curated message that I've ever gotten, because you actually looked at my background and saw that like I'm not still in ad tech. But yeah, I think again, going back to your point, and me being appreciative, is just all you can do is try. And I think if you put yourself on the playing field, and you put your best effort in, then people are going to see that. The reality is, if you're not necessarily good at whatever sport or business you're doing, maybe it is time to get out.
Sure. I mean, that's a strategic move, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
that as failure, but it's not.
And the feedback that I get is really positive. And so that is what keeps me going, where it's okay, even if I am trying to figure all this out, it's, hey, like, people are recognizing what I'm doing and they're showing love, and there's a bunch of big brands behind me. So sort of keep trucking until I don't know when.
That's amazing. So who do you normally sell into? Are you working with like brand managers, or are you on the client side, not necessarily if you're working with an agency or anything like that? Who are you working with?
So brand managers, brand directors, some people on the social teams, and really just like trying to work my way up. That's ultimately what it comes down to. But a lot of brand directors really, to me, are the people who they're understanding that the content and the strategy is really helping to drive these brands.
Yeah, well, they live it every day.
Totally. And so I've actually seen more success with brand directors and VPs of brands than I have with like photo directors, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, obviously going high is better for you overall, but like from a day-to-day, like if you have a category manager, right? Like someone who manages just the category of like biscuits or cookies for like Mona Lisa, then sometimes that's harder. You know what I mean? Selling for a second.
Totally. For me, it's interesting because I used to go in the door. I use this analogy. When selling, the idea was go through any door possible. Front door, back door, any door.
Yeah.
And that's how we were able to build and really get great case studies, because things would just kind of like fall in our laps because we were at the party. And that worked for a very long time. The issue is at the end of the party, when you leave, no one even necessarily knows you were there. And if they do know you were there, you weren't necessarily on the guest list. Yeah. And so that next party, you may not be invited to. And so the strategy moving forward now is really going through that front door.
Yeah.
And saying, here's who we are, here's what we do, going direct when possible. And so you get on that guest list. You do great work and you're able to get invited again, because the worst thing to happen is doing great work with someone else's name on it.
Yeah, no, amazing. And you'd be surprised, and maybe you've seen this, but I think people would be surprised, and it's a good thing for me right now because it's how I make some of my money for my business and everything like that. But I've worked with a lot of clients in the past year that are agencies that are like, I've just had business fall in my lap, and I'm actually like, you're in a dangerous situation. You're in a dangerous because you don't know when that's going to go away.
No, that's scary. And I think that's one of the difficulties of sort of having a service business that's not necessarily recurring versus like a SaaS business, where it's easier to project and build out those models.
Margins, all that, yeah.
Totally. And so definitely something that I'm always thinking about. And so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, because some of my clients the past year or so are agencies that have been lucky. And again, heck, having things fall in your lap, freaking amazing and fantastic. I'm not,
totally.
Like, sure, please let it happen. But I get hired to help agencies on pitches, and I'm even helping them with the tiniest thing. I'm like, well, sit here, your story is this, your story is that. I'm like, what's your brand story? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Because they've had it all fall on their lap, and like, we do production. I'm like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, we don't really know. Or they know, but it's like a 5-minute explanation versus like at some point, obviously, if you're in a pitch meeting, you need an elevator speech. You know?
Yeah.
So
Totally hear you on that.
So it's interesting. So you guys are based in Manhattan?
Correct.
Nice.
Downtown.
Downtown Soho, right?
That's it.
That's amazing. I mean, there's lots of amazing places to be in the world, but at least like feeling the energy of like an agency. Actually, what would you call, like, what would you define your, like, I was about to call you an agency. I don't know. I'm like, oops.
You know, I think the reality is it is an agency.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Are you okay with that term? Because it has many different connotations. Because even at the beginning, I asked you, I'm like, you know, you're against agencies.
Yeah. I think that simplifying things is very important. And even though agency is very broad, that kind of is the lane that we play in. And so, yeah, I think that is fair to say an agency. Probably a little begrudgingly, but that's it.
All right, I get it. No, and I love that you said that the simplifying things is important, obviously, and especially in selling. What do you do?
Yeah.
So we also, something you and I think we get along really well because of this though too, and because of everything we're talking about, our philosophies, is we also want to be pragmatic and useful. So one of the reasons I was asking who you're selling to too is, so for that brand manager out there who's listening to this, like, what are the things they're probably stumbling on now? What are the things that they could quickly change? Whether it's, and not necessarily that it's hiring you, obviously, that'd be the ultimate end goal and that'd be fantastic. But like, what are the simple, easy things that they could do to help make their content great today?
Great question. I'm definitely trying to answer this without saying us. What can they be doing? I think tapping into
answer will ultimately lead to you, but yeah,
younger generations.
To focus on younger generations,
to hear them out and work with them and see what's getting them off and how they're creating content and what they're interested in. You know, a lot of these agencies, a lot of these brands, it's people who are selling products of a lot of these products that are for younger generations.
Sure.
And so I think it's really important to look into those younger generations to see what they're doing, how they're doing it.
Love that. And
I think that sort of backs into sort of our approach with younger creators, more diverse creators. Yeah. That's
a good answer. And I don't want to get into you may not want to share this because it's part of your secret sauce or anything like that, but because you are casting specific photographers and, you know, media content creators, let's say, right, for specific brands, are you also tapping into them for strategy?
Wow. Great question. Historically, we have not. Working on something potentially now.
We did not talk about this beforehand.
We did not. Have not done it in the past. Actively trying to see if that's a lane that we should be entering into.
Got it. Yeah, and the reason I asked that question truthfully is because I've been in many rooms where people are trying to sell to Latinos, and like I'm the only Latino in it. And I'm like, we should probably get like some other people in here that actually know who we're selling to.
100%. And what's actually interesting is I don't have the exact number yet, but it's hovering around 75 or 80%. 75 or 80% of the people that we work with are either female and or non-Caucasian.
Oh, interesting.
And that's very important because a lot of what we're saying is diversity.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's something where it struck me the other day where I was looking at the roster of people that we've been working with over the past 2 years. And I was like, okay, like we're actually walking the walk and we're talking the talk. And that was pretty fun to realize because that's not what the goal was. That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what naturally happened. And so it was like, I don't know, I felt really proud when I saw that. I don't exactly know why.
Well, I think it's because it was genuine. And in either way, you can look at it as progress, obviously. Like if you make that decision, like, I guess I need to hire minorities, right? Minorities being hired and there's progress and that person thought that. But it makes it more beautiful, makes it beautiful that you like, were like, just like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it feels good. Like when
Yeah.
my producer or our producer will send me a photo of everyone on set, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is empowering.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good.
100%. No, that's amazing. Like I said, I don't know if beautiful is the right word, but it was like, it just happened. You did it. Yeah. No, that's an amazing thing. And I think obviously, like, again, tapping into those people, just like you're hiring someone in the Midwest to go shoot at the Midwest, it's only going to make the content and the strategy so much better. And I learn from, young people all the time. I feel like I'm young and then I say something and then like all of a sudden a 22-year-old is like, that's corny.
Yeah, we're not young anymore.
No, I know. Well, the question I get, so I speak at universities too, and the question I get is always about Facebook. Like, I don't use that crap anymore. That's for my grandma.
Yeah, Facebook's an interesting beast, but I think what people see with Facebook is Facebook.com or Facebook the app, even though that is where the majority of their users are, or at least I don't want to say majority of their users are, but that's where the tentpole of Facebook is.
Yeah.
They've got WhatsApp, Oculus, Instagram, and so are finding ways of diversifying and making sure they are tapping into younger generations. But the one thing is they definitely do seem to be having an issue with like under 13, I would say.
Yeah.
Because they're using the TikToks, they're using Snapchat, and even Instagram. When I talk to friends, younger siblings, they're saying, yeah, like Instagram is used kind of just to like flex every once in a while, but the real sauce is happening on Snapchat.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I do see that having now the ability to hire you and having access to those people so freaking valuable for a brand, because now that content you're creating is more likely to resonate. You never know if anything obviously is going to be perfect, but
have the people who are the demographic that you're trying to target creating the strategy and creating the content.
It seems obvious, but it's not. The other thing I've been seeing is almost like a resurgence in traditional media. So I work in influencer marketing too. And it's funny, like we talk about amplification, you talked about amplification and sharing content and all that. And it's funny, like we're always talking about Facebook and paid media and all that kind of good stuff. I'm like, oh, but you could also use it on the billboard. And they're like, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, I forgot about that. Are you seeing a lot of your content being used, or it should be? And if it's not, should it be used also? Like, why wouldn't they use it in a commercial?
Such an awesome point. Wow, such an awesome point. The deeper in conversations that we get, the more I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
The issue is fragmentation.
Okay.
In the brands, social teams.
I see what you're saying. Print
teams, so much fragmentation that a lot of times the content just isn't shared.
Yeah.
I mean, even look at, go to any website and look on the right side and see a 300 by 250 or a 300 by 600 ad. It's probably going to be a stale piece of content.
Yeah. Yeah. Still.
Why is the content, out of all the brands that we've ever worked with, a handful have repurposed the content for other channels. And that is something I absolutely would want to see more. If anything, it just makes sense just from a budgeting standpoint.
If I was a chief operational officer at a big or smaller company, I'm like, this is a no-brainer for us to save money. Let's get a digital asset management system and let people share. Yeah.
No, I'm totally with that. And I'm not one of these marketers who thinks like social sort of the end all be all. I mean, for the most part, it kind of is, but
sure. No, I'm the same way. And that's how I made my name. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lot of human touch points.
Yeah.
And so I think the bigger thought is, how do we create effective programming that is touching our consumers across these numerous touch points? Yeah. And to do that, there has to be less fragmentation within the brands.
Fire people. I'm joking. No, but I agree with that. And it's about the fragment. It's not even the fragmentation, I'd argue, because it's okay to be separated, but also have communication, right? And be able to talk to one another and see what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I think just breaking barriers down.
Yeah,
you know,
agreed.
like,
Slack helps with that even a little.
yeah,
Right? Like,
people have to communicate with one another,
Yeah.
and so it's just interesting where it's sometimes you go into it can be brand, it could be any company out there when people
Sure.
aren't talking to each other. It's like, I mean, just communicate.
Yeah, well, it's hard because it's also hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes. One of the best things that I started doing when I was at Expion, a social media and marketing technology company, it's my first time working in technology for social media, and I'd go on a sales call and then have sometimes friction with the product team. The product team like, don't you know this, or can't you look that up, or anything like that? And I'm like, and I was working in FiDi, and they were from North Carolina. And every time they'd come up, whether it was the product person, whether it was the intern, could have been anybody. I'm like, come on a sales call with me or a meeting with me and see how it happens. Walk to the subway, take a 30-minute subway ride, get there, because we got to be there at least 30 minutes, right, before we go in. Then actually, once I'm in the room, the AV stuff doesn't work. So I forgot my dongle, or they don't have HDMI cables, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? Next thing you know, I've spent a lot of time almost doing nothing, right? Not nothing, but it could be seen as like I wasn't really progressing. And then after that, the product team was like, oh, wow, you guys are actually really busy. Like, sure, you had one meeting, but that one meeting took you like 2 hours of prep, then, follow-ups, and then thinking strategically and everything. So they're like, wow, that was hard. So our relationship with the product team and the engineers exponentially grew because now they felt for me.
I like how you said that, and I think that is totally important. Communication's key, being passionate is key, and man, that's I just think that's so vital. Again, so many people are such products of their environments, and the environment that I grew up with is my dad, very, very successful, built everything himself. He's a corporate lawyer who's pretty much at the top of his game. He's compassionate to everyone. He's nice to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just didn't necessarily grow up in those kind of environments, or maybe their first boss that they were with forever was not a nice person, and so they followed in their path.
Yeah.
So yeah, hey, going back to me being appreciative, I'm appreciative to have parents where I'm able to see how they handle themselves, and especially one parent who, from a career standpoint, has exceeded to the top level, and along the way has been kind and generous.
That's amazing. I go back to saying I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. There's ROI in kindness. There's ROI in just being a good human. Like, it's even been proven. I don't know anything off the top of my head, but I know there are studies that prove that all the time and time.
Yeah.
And again, hell, even if it doesn't hit, then I'm still a good human.
I'm pretty sure, like, I left either my last talk, or I try to literally always like leave talks with just like, forget all this, just be a good person.
Yeah. I know.
And just be nice. And some people excel by not being nice, and if that's what they want to do, then great. But for me, hey, I'm just trying to just give everyone the benefit of the doubt and have a few smiles along the way.
Well, also, it's something I do in a lot of my speaking too, is let's realize how lucky we are, because even the story that you told earlier about being able to get a photo would take days, and you still don't even know if that photo was taken correctly. So when I start getting upset about content or this or that, I try to take a step back, because I fall fault to it too, right? And I'm like, well, actually, we were able to get 500 pictures, like you said, get someone mobilized and everything in 45 minutes, and I'm complaining about this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
Like, I have no room to complain, because my counterpart 5-10 years ago would never be able to do that.
Agreed.
So I like to take a step back and realize how lucky we are to be born in where we are and all the technology that's around us. So you're growing, you've had some amazing experience, some amazing clients. You have an idea as to where you're going. I love everything that I'm seeing. Where can people hire you? How can people work with you?
Yeah. So check us out on dsprojects.co, our website, our Instagram _DS Projects.
Cool.
Anyone want to email me? Dylan, DYLAN @dsprojects.co. Or get at my private or personal Instagram at dhattem, DHATTEM. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with or talk about before we drop off?
No, I just want to say, well, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for having me on this.
No,
Really a pleasure connecting. And like I said earlier, just everyone be nice to each other and do good work, and they'll make the world a better place.
All right, brother. Love you for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Love you too, man.
Thank you.